Hello and welcome to High Value Writing. I'm Erin Lebax. You may have noticed I'm not in my usual teaching spot today. I'm visiting a friend and colleague this week. You'll see a video with us two soon. But this video comes by request. Thank you, friend. We're going to talk today about how to write a letter of recommendation. Now, this can apply for your students or your employees. So whether you're a professor or you're a boss, you can use this plan to write a great letter of recommendation to make sure that your letter meets the reader's hopes, right? We don't want to just write a general letter of recommendation. We want to write a really pointed one, thinking about what's needed from that reader. So these are the steps we're going to follow. Number one, we're going to prepare our content by thinking through our student or employee and the needs of their potential employer, their potential graduate program, whatever it might be. Then we'll talk about the shape of the actual letter, and it's 3 steps. The intro, we have certain things we need to include there. Body paragraphs, we'll talk about how to be specific, and then how to conclude and lead to next steps. And with each of these, you'll find an example as we go along. So let's get started. Now, first of all, writing a letter of recommendation is really about thinking. Again, imagine the readers receiving many of these. The more pointed and applied to the situation you can make your letter, the more your student or employee will stand out to that reader. So for this reason, we're going to think about 3 things. What is our purpose in the letter? What exactly are we recommending them for? If it's a scholarship, thinking about, well, what makes a good scholarship candidate? If it's a grad program, what is needed there? If it's a specific job, what's the purpose that we're trying to get our employees set up for? Then we're going to think about who's going to read this letter and what's important to them. The values of that reader, right? We've talked about this before, that you want to meet your reader's needs. Now, in this case, we are writing to put someone else forward. So we really want to do our best to analyze, what is the reader hoping for? What's going to be the best fulfillment of their spot for a new job, a new employee, their spot for a new graduate student, etc. And then, of course, we're going to think about our student or our employee and 3 or 4 specific strengths they have. However, we're not just going to talk about any strengths. Probably the person you're writing about has dozens of strengths. We are going to choose ones that match what that reader's looking for. So let's see how that's all done. We'll look at 2 examples for this, a workplace example if you're writing a letter of recommendation for your employee, and an academic example if you're writing a letter of recommendation for your student. Here's an example of writing to a potential employer, and it suggests on the slide here, match the employer's needs with the person you're talking about's strengths. We want that reader to say, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I was looking for, right? So for example, let's say my employee has, like I said, many strengths. They're responsible, hardworking, they're great at coding, they take initiative, they collaborate well, they're trustworthy, and many more. Which of these am I going to choose to highlight, right? Well, maybe the job posting says this new software engineer will work independently without daily supervision. And so I'm going to take that description in mind as I choose which strengths to focus on to get the best match. So in this case, I'm going to choose not to talk as much about collaboration if they'll be working alone a lot, and I'm going to talk about factors and strengths that make someone capable of working independently. They take initiative, they're trustworthy, right? So I'm orienting my choices to what I think is going to be most important to that reader. And we can take the same approach in an academic example. Now I'm matching the student's needs, the student's strengths, with whatever department they're going to. What is that department looking for? Or that scholarship, right? So I'm thinking through how to match these up. In this example, maybe the description includes new graduate students will focus on research, but they may also apply to be a teaching assistant. So I'm thinking, okay, how can I choose the strengths of my student that really show that they can do both of those? And so again, they're wonderful at many things, but I'm going to choose they're an ethical researcher to show that they can match that research need. And then also that they're potentially good in the classroom because they're a great presenter and they show leadership in conversations and discussions in the class. So now I've focused in a little kind of an outline, right? I know I'm going to talk about these three things, probably a paragraph for each. So let's look now at that outline, the intro, the body paragraphs, and the conclusion. Now I'm referring to your introductory paragraph as a background paragraph because this is slightly different than an introductory paragraph to an essay or an email or an article or other things we might write, because there are a couple of expectations, namely number 2 and 3, that people are looking for specifically in a recommendation letter. So we do want to open with our main point. I'm writing to recommend so-and-so, get their name out there right away. But we do need to work into that. What is the relationship and for how long? Did they work in a department I oversee? For how long? Did they then get promoted and we were colleagues? How long? Were they in my class? How long have I been working with them around campus? This is what the reader needs to know to establish how good of a recommender you are, right? Because you have a real relationship with the student, you know them well, or the employee. And then lastly, I'll recommend a sentence that's really kind of a thesis. This student, this employee excels at A, B, and C, choosing from those circled areas on the previous slide. So here we're going to look at an example of that background paragraph, and then we'll do an example of a body paragraph and conclusion. All right, following the 4 steps, right? I'm happy to recommend Brianna Sanchez for this year's chemistry scholarship. So I've chosen one that's not graduate school or employment. It's a scholarship. We write letters to recommend people for those, right? I have had Brianna in 3 classes over the past 2 years. Now I've established the relationship, the dynamic, right? Was I the professor? Was I the boss? And also how long? Brianna consistently demonstrates intelligence, passion for the subject, and a measured, responsible way of thinking about science. That's my main point, my thesis. And we can imagine then that I'm going to have a paragraph on each. So let's look at one of those paragraphs as an example. Now for each body paragraph, one of the most important things in a letter of recommendation, more so than other fields of writing, is using specific examples that you're showing. I don't just know this person, I know what they can do. And here's an example to provide that evidence. So we want to start each of these paragraphs with a topic sentence that basically shows, hey, here's the strength I'm going to cover in this paragraph. Now the reader's ready for it. Then we're going to talk about that strength and with an example. And lastly, and this is different than other kinds of writing in a way too, connect that whole discussion back to what we think that reader is looking for. Again, the goal is after every paragraph, that reader thinks, oh my gosh, this is exactly who I need. Here's an example of doing those 4 steps. I first met Brianna in Organic Chemistry 2, where she showed determination and intellect. Topic sentence matches what we did in the introductory, where we were going to cover her intelligence. While many students tire of the demands of OChem 2, Brianna showed up to every study session, literally aced every quiz, and performed well on exams. That's my evidence. Her intellect and hard work will help her take full advantage of this scholarship. And my thinking on that last sentence is, I want the reader to know this will be a scholarship well spent, right? Or this will be a graduate program position well assigned, or a job that perfectly matches what this person can excel in. So you can see my examples in there. She came to the study sessions. That's evidence of this determination, right? And then I wrapped it up by saying how that can matter to the reader in this specific situation. Now we would have done those body paragraphs 3 or 4 times, right? We're going to talk usually about 3 or 4 strengths with examples. So each of your body paragraphs can look like what we just did. When you conclude after that, then we have some specific things again. Restate the capabilities, kind of restating our thesis. Again, number 2 here, connecting those capabilities with what the reader wants. And then providing our contact info. This is customary in a letter of recommendation. What if they want to have a phone conversation or learn more or ask you a question? We want to make sure we appear very open to that because we're advocating for this person. I cannot overstate Brianna's eligibility for this scholarship. I'm restating she's perfect for this, right? Despite a difficult past, her intellect and hard work have helped her achieve higher scores in chemistry than most of her counterparts, and she will take full advantage of this scholarship, again connecting it to reader needs. Please feel free to reach me at this number or this email anytime. All right, so thank you for this recommendation of a recommendation, right? Somebody asked for a video on this. Thank you, Pervase. I encourage all of you to request a video topic if you'd like, and I'd love to hear your questions on writing a letter of recommendation. I'll be sure to get back to you so you can write the best letter to advocate for your student or your employee.